October 13, 2025, a French military helicopter lifts off from Antananarivo, Madagascar's capital, inside a president fleeing his own country. Now, if you are thinking another African coup, you are not wrong, but you are missing the bigger game being played here, because the same military that put President Rajoelina in power back in 2009 just turned around and kicked him out. And France, the country who publicly stays out of African politics, just quietly arranged his escape. So the question isn't just, why did Madagascar's government fall? The question is, who controls what happens next? So stick with me, because this isn't just about Madagascar. It's about a pattern playing out across Africa, and the invisible strings being pulled behind the scenes. Now, let me paint the picture for you. September 25th, 2025, young people across Madagascar pour into the streets. Not hundreds, thousands. Antananarivo to Amasina, Mahajanga. The whole country erupts. What are they angry about? Three things: power outages, not occasional blackouts, weeks without electricity in some areas, water shortages, basic infrastructure collapsing, and the big one, corruption, a government more focused in staying in power than keeping the lights on. Madagascar isn't some resource-poor backwater. This country sits on some of the world's most richest deposits in nickel, cobalt, rare earth minerals, the stuff that powers your phone, your electric car, your laptop. The IMF just approved some $107 million credit package. Foreign investors were watching. China and Russia had projects lined up. And then, boom, everything falls apart. But you know there is more. The people protesting in the streets, they weren't the ones who actually toppled the government. So who did? October 12th, a special forces unit called CAPSAT, the Presidential Security Guard, suddenly switched sides. These aren't just any soldiers. These are the elite troops, personally loyal to the president. The same unit that helped him seize power in the 2009 coup. And now, they are calling for him to step down. They seize the state broadcaster. They tell other military units to join the protests. Now imagine waking up and finding out that your bodyguards just joined the mob outside your door. Within 24 hours, at least 22 people were unalived. The capital is in chaos. Rajoelina's government is collapsing in real time. And this is where France quietly enters the picture. Now, before I tell you what happens next, let me ask you something. If you were a president whose own military just turned on you, who would you call? Keep that in mind. October 13. A French military aircraft lands in Antananarivo. President Rajoelina boards. The plane takes off. Destination: France. Now officially, France says nothing. President Macron's office declines to confirm any operation. But multiple sources, including Le Monde and RFI, report the evacuation was coordinated by French authorities. Now think about what that means. France officially doesn't intervene in African politics anymore. Now that's the narrative. The days of France-Afrique, where Paris controlled who ruled in its former colonies, those days are supposedly over. And yet, when Madagascar's president needs an exit, who arranges the flight? Now here is where most people get it wrong. A lot of commentators are framing it up like this: France pulling strings, or neo-colonialism strikes again. I'm sure there is truth in that, but let me offer you a different lens. What if France didn't cause the coup? but saw it coming and positioned itself to control the aftermath. Now think about it. If Rajoelina had stayed and fought, Madagascar descends in civil war, French economic interests, mining contracts, port access, the naval base on Reunion Island, just off the coast, all of that at risk. But if France evacuates him quietly, Paris looks like the responsible actor, protecting regional stability. They maintain leverage over who comes next, and they avoid the mess of direct intervention. It's not control, it's positioning. So here's my question for you. Is that better or worse than outright interference? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious on how you see this. October 14th, Madagascar's parliament impeaches Rajoelina. The military, now led by Colonel Michel Randrianirina, declares control. Randrianirina promises a 2-year transition to elections, promises to restore order and respond to popular demands. Now, if that sounds familiar, it should, because this is the same script we have seen in Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Gabon. Military takes over, promises transition. October 15th, the African Union suspends Madagascar, demands a return to civilian rule. But the EU has suspended countries before, but it didn't stop coups in the Sahel. It didn't stop Gabon. Sanctions might come, international pressure might build, but if the military consolidates power quickly enough, and if France quietly backs the transition, Madagascar could follow the same path. And that brings us to the real question, because this story isn't really about one president fleeing one country. It's about a shift happening across an entire continent. And if you are not paying attention, you are going to miss what comes next. Now, let me connect the dots for you. In the past 3 years, we have seen military takeovers in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Gabon, Sudan, and now Madagascar. Most of these coups have one thing in common. Do you guess that? Youth anger. Young people tired of corruption, tired of broken promises, tired of leaders who stay in power for decades while infrastructure crumbles. There is an African proverb that says, when the elders fail to speak, the children will tell the truth. And that's exactly what's happening. Gen Z across Africa isn't waiting for permission anymore. They are organizing online, they are mobilizing fast, and when they hit the streets, they are forcing change, whether through elections or increasingly through alliances with the military. But here is the uncomfortable truth. When the military takes over in the name of the people, who really wins? Now, some people look at these coups and say, finally, Africa is breaking free from Western control. Others say, this is chaos, military rule never leads to democracy. The truth? Both are happening at the same time. Yes, African countries are pushing back against foreign interference. But also, yes, military governments can become just as corrupt as the civilians they replace. And foreign powers, whether it's France, China, or Russia, are still positioning themselves to benefit. So why does Madagascar matter? Because it tests a case. If the military transition works, if Randrianirina actually hands over power in 2 years, it sets a precedent. It shows that youth anger plus military backing can lead to real reform. But if it fails, if this just becomes another strongman regime, then we are looking at a generation of African leaders who came to power through coups, not elections. And that changes everything. And here's what I want you to take away from this. When you see headlines about another African coup, don't just scroll past. Ask yourself, who benefits, who loses, and who is pulling the strings behind the scenes? Because the story is never as simple as it looks. Madagascar's crisis didn't start with a coup. It started with power, outages, and broken promises. It started when leaders forgot that governance isn't just about staying in power. It's about serving the people who put you there. And that, my friend, is the lesson for every country on this continent. By 2027, we will see at least 3 military takeovers in Africa. Not because military wants power, but because young people will demand it. If you think I'm wrong, tell me why in the comments. If you think I'm right, tell me the countries you think are next. This is the strategic lens where we don't just cover the news. We dig into the strategies, the power plays, and the stories underneath the headlines. Hit the subscribe button because this story isn't over yet. Until next time, stay sharp.